Today we will start with a lesson from the diary of Anne Frank. Here in this lesson, um, which is based on the background of World War II, this is an autobiography of a young girl whose name is Anne Frank, who expresses her thought in a diary, and her father has gifted the diary on her 13th birthday, which she calls with the name of Kitty. Anne Frank is a Jewish girl and who is hiding during World War II in order to avoid the Nazis. She shares her experience and the story during her time of depression, and she lives there for 2 years in Amsterdam and describes all her experiences in the diary. And she puts her energy into studying and writing and gaining knowledge of politics, literature. After her death, she becomes world famous because of the diary. Okay, so let's begin the lesson. Writing in a diary is a real strange experience for someone like me. Not only because I have never written anything before, but also because it seems to me that later on neither I nor anyone else will be interested in the musing of a 13-year-old schoolgirl. Oh well, it doesn't matter. I feel like writing, and I have an even greater need to get all kinds of things off my chest. So here, writing in a diary is a really a strange experience for that girl also. Not only because I have never written anything in a diary. What she's saying that nobody is having any interest of seeing or musing 13-year-old schoolgirl's diary. So here she has started writing. She's having an even greater need to get all kind of things off my chest, means she is having all the talks in her diary. That is a secret one. Paper has more patience than people. I thought of this saying on one of those days when I was feeling a little depressed and was sitting at home with my chin in my hands, bored and listless, wondering whether to stay in or go out. I finally stayed where I was, brooding. Yes, papers does have more patience, and since I'm not planning to let anyone else read this stiff-backed notebook, grandly referred to as a diary, unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably won't make a bit of difference. So here, what she said, paper has more patience than people, um, because no people is having no patience like that. I thought of saying no one of those days when she was feeling depressed and was sitting home alone, bored and listless, what she is wondering to stay in or go out, and then she finally stayed and was brooding. Yes, paper have more patience, and she was not planning to let anyone else read that diary, read that notebook, referred to as a diary, that grandly um, referred to as a diary. Unless I should ever find a real friend, it probably won't make a bit of difference. Means not make a bit of difference probably, because are has more patience than people. Now I'm back to the point that prompted me to keep a diary in the first place. I don't have a friend because she is not having a friend. Here the author is feeling very lonely as she has no friends to talk to, and she wants to give her need of friend a shape. Hence decide to name that diary. So she put his thoughts away and decided to write her thoughts in a diary. Let me put it more clearly, since no one will believe that a 13-year-old girl is completely alone in the world, and I am not. I have loving parents and a 16-year-old sister, and there are about 30 people I can call friends. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No one on the surface. I seem to have everything except my one true friend. All I think about when I am with friends is having a good time. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everyday things. We don't seem to be able to get any closer, and that's the problem. Maybe it's my fault that we don't confide in each other. In any case, that's just how things are, and unfortunately, they are not liable to change. This is why I have started the diary. Confide mean to tell personal things privately for that person whom you are trust mostly. So here, let me clearly, she want to clearly put clearly one thing, that 13-year-old girl is all alone in the world, and she's also having loving parents and a 16 years old sister, but then also she's not having a good friend. I have a family, loving aunts, and a good home. No one on the surface. I seem to have everything except my true friend. He is not having a true friend in this world. She has a good time with friends, but cannot share everything with them, as they are not true friend. I can't bring myself to talk about anything but ordinary everything. We don't seem to be able to get closer because she's not having true friend. Maybe it's my fault, maybe that is her fault. She refers that we don't confine each other, means we are not taking it personally or privately. In any case, that's how things are, and unfortunately they are not liable to change. This is why I have started the diary. That's why when she's not having a true friend, that's why she has started to write the diary. To enhance the image of this long awaited friend in my imagination, I don't want to jot down the facts in this diary. Jot down means to write down in the diary, but I want the diary to be my friend, and I'm going to call this friend Kitty. Here, to enhance the image of a long awaited friend in my imagination, what he feels that in her imagination, that I don't want to jot down the facts in a diary. I don't want to jot down the fact in the diary the way most people would do, and but I want the diary is to be my friend. I am going to call this friend Kitty. So what she decides, she wants to give her need of friend a shape, and hence decides to name the diary as a Kitty. Here the writer feels that the paper has more capacity to absorb thoughts rather than people who have low patience level. So she has a good time with friends but cannot share everything. So here she wants diary to be a friend and named her Kitty. Since no one would understand a word of my stories to kitties if I were to plunge right in, I would better provide a brief sketch of my life, much as I dislike doing so. So here, no one can understand a word of my stories to Kitty. Kitty will never take it. If I were to plunge right in, I would better provide a brief sketch of my life in the diary. And my father, the most adorable person I have ever seen, didn't marry my mother until she was 36, and he was 36 and she was 25. My sister Margaret was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926. I was born on 12 June 1929. I lived in Frankfurt until I was 4. My father immigrated to Holland in 1933. My mother, Edith Hollander Frank, went with him to Holland in September, while Margaret and I were sent to Aachen to stay with our grandmother. Margaret went to Holland in December and I followed in February. And when I was plunked down to the table in a birthday present for Margaret, plunked down means put down in a casual way as a birthday present. Here, her father is most adorable person in her life, in Anne Frank's life. So here he didn't marry her mother until he was 36 and her mother was 25. and his sister's name is Margaret, was born in Frankfurt in Germany in 1926, and Anne Frank was born on 12th June 1929. So she refers to her father as a most lovable person in her life, who presents her the diary on her 13th birthday, and both were sent to Aachen to stay with their grandmother, and Margaret went to Holland in December, and Anne Frank followed in February. And Anne Frank was plunked down, means put down in a casual way on the table as a birthday present for her sister. I started right away at Montessori Nursery School. I stayed there until I was 6, at which time I started in the first form. In the sixth form, my teacher was Mrs. Cabarrus, the headmistress. At the end of the year, we were both in tears as we said a heartbreaking farewell. And now she was started at the Montessori Nursery School until she was 6, and that time I started in the first form. In the sixth form, my teacher was Mr. Kapuras, and her headmistress, and at the end of the year we both in tears as we had a heartbreaking farewell, both the teacher and the Anne Frank. In the summer of 1941, grandma fell ill and had to have an operation, so my birthday passed with little celebration. So she is not having much celebration on her birthday because and her grandma fell ill and have to have an operation. Grandma died in January 1942. No one knows how often I think of her and still love her. This birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up for the other. Now it was in the next birthday celebration in 1942 was intended to make up the other birthday, and the grandma's candle was lit along with the rest. The four of us are still doing well, and that brings me to the present date of 20th June 1942 and the solemn dedication of my diary. Now here, four of the family members are doing well, and that brings me to the present date, when she got the present as the birthday present diary. She got the diary. So here she has written in the diary. She mentioned how that she has written, "Dearest Kitty, our entire class is quacking in its boots. The reason, of course, is the forthcoming meeting in which the teachers decide who will move up to the next form and who will be kept back. Half the class is making bets. Gian and I laugh ourselves silly at the two boys behind us, Cian and Jax, who have staked their entire holiday saving on their bet. From morning to night, it's you are going to pass. No, I'm not. Yes, you are. No, I'm not. Even GS pleading glances and my angry outburst can't calm them down. If you ask me, there are so many dummies that about a quarter of the class should be kept back, but teachers are the most unpredictable creature on the earth. Now all the entire class, means our class, is quacking in its boot. Quacking in its boot means shaking with fear and nervousness, who will go in the next class and who will sit kept back, will not move to the next class. So here Anne Frank and her classmates are making that who will go, making bets. G and I laugh for a silly thing, that two boys, for that ourselves silly at the two boys behind us. Here no one means here the author says that the only subject she is unsure about, that is maths. She's worried about. She and her friend G are trying to stop the student for making noise, but no one is avail here. According to the author here, about the quarter of the class should not pass as they do not participate in any of the activities, but the teachers are the, here what she has given here, if you ask me, there are so many dummies, about the quarter of the class should be kept back. Maybe quarter of the class should be kept back because there are so many dummies in the class, but the teachers are the most unpredictable creature on earth. I'm not so worried about my girlfriends and myself. We will make it. Here, Anne Frank is not worried about her friends, girlfriends, and myself, because he will make it. The only subject I'm not sure about is maths. The hardest subject is maths. She is unsure about is maths. She and her friend G are making to stop the in any way. um, I'm not sure about is maths. Anyway, all we can do is wait. Until then, we keep telling each other not to lose heart. So here, don't lose heart. We will do in a good way. But the only subject she was not sure is maths. I get along pretty well with all my teachers. There are 9 of them, 7 men and 2 women. Mr. Keesing, the old fogey who teaches maths, was annoyed with me for ages because I talked so much. After several warnings, he assigned me extra homework and essay on the subject, a chatterbox. A chatterbox? What can you write about that? I would worry about that later. I decided. I jotted down the title in my notebook, tucked it in my bag in my bag, and tried to keep quiet. Now, maths teacher Mr. Keesing, he's annoyed with Anne Frank for ages because she talked very much in the class. So she won several times, and he assigned extra homework to Anne Frank, an essay on the subject, a chatterbox. A chatterbox means what can we write on the topic, a chatterbox. So he just note down the topic in the notebook and just keep it in the bag, and just keep quiet in the try to keep quiet in the class. That evening, after I would finish the rest of my homework, the note about the essay caught my eye. I began thinking about the subject while chewing the tip of my fountain pen. Anyone could ramble on the and leave big spaces between the words. Ramble on means talk or write aimlessly for a long. But the trick was to come up with a convincing argument to prove the necessity of talking. I thought, and suddenly I had an idea. I wrote the 3 pages of Mr. Keesing had assigned me and was satisfied. I argued that talking is a student's trait, and that I would do my best to keep it under control. So that evening, when she finished all the homeworks, and the note about the essay caught her eye, that he have to write that essay also on the topic, a chatterbox, I began thinking about the subject by having the fountain pen, enjoying the fountain pen and the tip of the fountain pen. And anyone could ramble means aimlessly. What is this subject to write? And now, but the trick was to come up that convincing an argument to keep the necessity of talking in the class. So I thought that suddenly I had an idea that she wrote 3 pages. Mr. Keesing had assigned me, had assigned, and Frank was satisfied. That is an argument. I argued that talking is a student's trait, and I would do my best, and I will keep it under control in the talking in the class under control. But that I would never be able to cure myself of the habit, since my mother talked as much as I did, if not more, and that there's not much you can do about inherited traits. Now, what she is doing here, that that she is having the inherited trait, but that would never be able to cure myself fully, because my mother also talked very much. That's why I am having inherited trait from my mother. Mr. Keesing had a good laugh at my arguments, but when I proceeded to talk my way through the next lesson, she assigned me a second essay. Now, this time it was supposed to be on an incorrigible chatterbox. I handed it in, and Mr. Keesing had nothing to complain about for 2 whole lessons. However, during the 3rd lesson, I would finally had enough. Anne Frank, as punishment for talking in class, write an essay entitled "Quack, Quack, Quack," said Mistress Chatterbox. So this time Mr. Keesing had a good life by reading that argument, but he proceeded to talk through the next lesson. Now he assigned a second essay, that was incorrigible chatterbox, and I handed it in, and Mr. Keesing nothing to complain for the whole 2 lessons. He is having no complaint, And then during the third lesson, he would finally had enough. Then Anne Frank, as a punishment for talking in the class again, and he is having write an essay entitled that quack quack quack, said Mistress Chatterbox that you have to write an essay on that. Incorrigible means something that cannot be corrected. Now the class roared. I had to laugh too, though I would nearly exhausted my ingenuity on the topic of chatterboxes. It was the time to come up with something else, something original. My friend San, who was good at poetry, offered to help me write the essay from beginning to end in verse, and I jumped for joy. Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on me with this ridiculous subject, but I would make sure the joke was on him. Now he has given the next essay that is entitled Quack Quack Quack, the chatterbox, and it was the time to come up with something else now. Now her friend San, who is good at poetry, offered help me to write an essay from beginning to end in verse. And now this was Mr. Keesing was trying to play a joke on Anne Frank, but now this time the joke on me with this ridiculous subject, but it would make the sure joke on him only, Mr. Keesing only. I finished my poem and it was beautiful. It was about a mother duck and a father swan, these three baby ducklings who were beaten to death by the father because they quacked too much. Luckily, Mr. Keesing took the joke the right way. Now she finished the poem that was very beautiful. In her poem, there is a mother duck and a father swan and three baby ducklings who were beaten to death because they are quacked too much. Luckily, now Mr. Keesing took the joke in a right way. He read the poem to a class, adding his own comments, and to several other classes as well. Since then, I have been allowed to talk and haven't been assigned any extra homework to write. And on the contrary, Mr. Keesing is always making jokes these days. So this is the part from the diary. Here it is given, yours Anne. That is the part of the diary. So here we can conclude that a young student needs to talk and feel joyous in order to stay mentally fit. So it should be under control. So this is the lesson. May this will help you. Like, share and subscribe my channel. Thank you.